there is no God but Allah. I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant. I greet my beloved brothers and sisters in the words of peace, in the language of our fathers of Assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today? All praise is due to Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Farrakhan Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever. And we thank him for raising in our midst the promised Messiah, the predicted Christ, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we must thank them both for the one who stands among us today as a real-life example of what the guidance of the true God can do for a man and a woman. He is our teacher, he is our friend, he is our guide. And I'm speaking of my teacher, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. I thank him for not only the opportunity to come before our people, which is a great honor, but for providing me with the substance to have something to say. For without these teachings, I would have nothing that really would be of value in the process of our liberation. Today's talk is entitled Farrakhan Muhammad, Beyond Melanin. And I'm taking the parameters of that lecture from the 8th surah or chapter of the Holy Quran, which is called Voluntary Gifts. And I want to go to section 3, which is entitled by the translator, Melanin Muhammad Ali, The Way to Success. We are in a season that the Caucasian people have established as a time to celebrate their rulership over us. And it is a time when, more than any season of the year, if we have not achieved economic success, we feel that. We feel it in our inability to be able to supply our family and friends with those things that represent happiness in a nation that pursues material wealth with such obsession that it could absolutely be deemed to be materialistic, or a nation that worships matter as opposed to the Creator. In this section 3, which you should read tonight if you have a Holy Quran, if you don't have one, you must do everything you can to immediately obtain that book. It is not a book that you will see encouraged by this government or its educational system. In fact, absent exposure to these teachings, you will never hear of it or that it exists. O you who believe, obey Allah and His Messenger, and turn not away from Him while you hear. And be not like those who say, we hear, and they hear not. Surely the vilest of beasts in Allah's sight are the deaf, the dumb, who understand not. And if Allah had known any good in them, He would have made them hear. And if He makes them hear, they would turn away while they are averse. O you who believe, respond to Allah and His Messenger when He calls you to that which gives you life. And know that Allah comes in between a man and his heart, and that to Him you will be gathered. And guard yourselves against an affliction, which may not smite those of you exclusively who are unjust. And know that Allah is severe in requiting. O you who believe, be not unfaithful to Allah and the Messenger, nor be unfaithful to your trust while you know. And know that your wealth and your children are a temptation, and that Allah is He with whom there is a mighty reward. Brothers and sisters, if you study recent history of the liberation movement in the United States of black people, you will note that each time we approach infinity, meaning our connection with our Creator, we are given something that is confining. And when we are given that confining thing, which is easier to contend with, we tend to accept that confinement above our true liberation. For example, it was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad who brought to black people use of the word and the term black in reference to ourselves. The most militant, the most enlightened leadership that we had prior to him still referred to themselves as Negroes. And at a time when black was considered degradation and ugliness, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad bore the weight of the disrespect and mockery of both black and white by persisting in utilizing that term, calling us the black man and woman. And finally, after 30 years of consistent and determined use of that right and true term, it finally registered with us that that is who and what we are. Simultaneously with our realization of this fact, the Caucasian who studies us constantly as we are his maker, and every living thing seeks to meet its source. So he constantly studies us. And he knew that we had come to terms with who and what we are. So he put in motion a concept called black power. And black is beautiful. That was a tool of the media that was used by the Caucasian, specifically I'm speaking of the Jew, to give us satisfaction with the discovery of something that had been kept secret from us. If you study the civil rights movement, it received support only when racism had so closed out all of the options of black people that they had nowhere to turn but the Nation of Islam. And it was in that moment that the Caucasian offered integration to our people. Now, in the 90s, we are being offered the study through the process of intellectualization of the chemical melanin, which is that powerful molecule that in the physical world confers on the black man that which makes him more suitable to nature. But melanin, and we will discuss it in the course of this short talk, cannot be God and cannot be taken as God. Why? How do you test that statement? How can I tell you truthfully that you are wrong if you begin to pursue the study of this with the idea that this is your source and that this is your God? And that simply by virtue of the fact that your skin is dark, you're prepared to rule. That's a mistake. And the reason that's a mistake is because melanin is something that can be used not only for you, but against you, if it's placed in the hands of a manipulator. That's how you know it can't be God. God cannot be manipulated. God cannot be discovered. You cannot find God. He has to come and find you first, then show you how to find him. You don't discover God like Columbus discovered America. We don't exist because of DNA, as the Caucasian would have us believe. But also, we don't exist solely because of the melanin molecule. We exist solely because we are on the mind of God. And the moment we cease to be on his mind, we will cease to exist. And this is why we must justify our existence. We know from studying the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad through Minister Louis Farrakhan that we become what we think about. Everything you and I are today, at this moment, is the sum total of every preceding thought we ever had. And everything you and I will ever become is the result of the content of our own mind. Why is that important to know? So that you will not think that you are subject to the control of the external environment, and that you will do as the Honorable Louis Farrakhan tells us, as his father told us before him. Get up and do something for yourself. That's the hour that we are in. The American economy is dead. It just hasn't completely laid down yet. But anytime you see an airline as busy as Midway was, shut down, not with a lot of notice. Think about people that were holding tickets that day. But not only people that were holding tickets thinking they were leaving Chicago. Think about someone in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands with a return ticket. And now suddenly, no way to get home. General Motors, the engine of the US of A, 70,000 workers, most of them white, most of them functionally illiterate, incapable of doing anything else. Now on the verge of being homeless, now hungry, and now being trained by the U.S. government to blame you and I for their condition. IBM, the great power of the 20th century, laying off 20,000 people. Where are they going to get the money to pay the mortgage notes? In 2 weeks, they will be in the street. We do not realize our goals or meet our destiny through what we do with our body, but through what we do with our minds. Even the condition of our body is not a cause, it is an effect. And when we improve the quality of our thinking, it must, by way of extension, improve the quality of our lives. If your life is not improved, it is because you and I are refusing to change our thinking. I want to go over today some of the divine laws that govern the aspects of our life. Now, it's not necessary for you to memorize or even be familiar by name with these laws, any more than it would be necessary for you to be a lawyer to be a good citizen of a government. If you know who the true authority in this universe is, and you obey that authority as this 8th chapter of the Quran tells us, then you will automatically be in line with law and you automatically will become successful. There is nothing wrong with you and I desiring material things, but it is wrong for us to place those things above our Creator, and it is wrong for us to expect Caucasian people to supply us with those things. That is an unfair and non-real expectation. Now, the law of belief. The law of belief. And as I go through these things, I'm going to ask myself, and you ask yourself, am I obeying this divine law? And if I am not, then maybe that is the cause of the distress in my life. And we all have distress. We all have it. This is a beautiful group of people sitting here in this room. And Allah is rewarding you with a beautiful countenance to protect you from attack in the outside world. He covers your troubles from a wicked thing so that you will not appear vulnerable. Anytime you make the slightest effort to do his will, such as coming here on a Sunday afternoon, rather than laying in the bed with videos and a big ham sandwich, which you could have done, and you would be acceptable to society if you had done that. What you doing? Looking at TV? Me too. Where is so-and-so? Oh, she went out there with those Muslims. God only knows what she's going to be like when she comes back in the door. Oh, he's out there with those Muslims again. They're making the man crazy. He can't function at his job anymore. Now they're going to fire you from Kmart because you are thinking independently. If they do, then get on your knees and thank Allah, because it will make you get up and do something for yourself. And all praise is due to Allah. The law of belief says that whatever we believe with feeling becomes our reality. If we wish to change our reality, then we must change our belief about ourselves in relation to reality. If we have self-limiting beliefs, they become true whether they're based on fact or fiction. I'm going to say that again. I want you to listen good. Whatever limitations you place on yourself will come true even if the limitation is based on fiction. And I'm going to leave that alone. Come back to that. That's law number one. And ask yourself, how am I acting in accordance with that? We know that we place too many limitations on our capacity to do better. We know that we are satisfied with much too little. As we were talking about in the class Friday night, there are people in this world who cannot fathom living in a house that has less than 22 rooms in it. They can't imagine it. It's not enough space. Oh, this house has 12 rooms. I can't stay here. It's too small. And you know what? Those people live in 22-room mansions because it is a law of the universe that what you believe with feeling will eventually manifest as the reality of your life. Now, if you want to stay in one room for the rest of your life, then think that you're happy there. And you'll be there. When they come to carry your body out, they'll carry it out of that room. But don't get upset with other people if they're not happy with that and they want more space. Minister Farrakhan could have been like any chicken foot preacher and been happy in the final call. There are a lot of preachers that are happy with, long as they have 10 or 15 women screaming and shouting at them and giving them enough money to make their rent, they're satisfied. That's why the black community has 8 million storefront churches and the Koreans run our lives. That's the law of belief. The Koreans run our community because we have limited our belief to the idea that someone else has to come in our block and sell us our needs. And that's fictitious, but it's occurring because it's our state of mind. The law of expectation, number 2. Whatever we expect with confidence becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That is why it is important to expect the best of yourself, then others, in every situation. The most successful people you know have a quality of positive self-expectancy. They continually produce their own expectations, meaning they have an agenda. Sister Ava Muhammad warned us in a meeting in the University of Islam. She said in 1992, you must stop letting things happen to you and start making things happen for yourself. Continually produce your own agenda. That way, you will keep yourself positive. What are you doing Monday morning? I guarantee you, without having spoken to him, that Minister Louis Farrakhan has an agenda for Monday morning. In fact, he has an agenda for the year 2000. He is not a man who watches television at 4 o'clock to see whether or not Richard Daley is going to retain Leroy Martin as police superintendent. Who cares? That's a non-reality. That's a non-reality from the viewpoint of Allah. It has nothing to do, it is not going to affect Allah's intention to bring in a new world order. In a few days, I guarantee you, it could be Ronald McDonald as the police superintendent. It won't make any difference. But keep yourself positive and keep your self-fulfilling prophecies consistent with what you want as opposed to being consistent with what you fear. Black people sit around in huddles worrying about what white people are going to do next to take away more of our power. And therefore, it comes to pass. Because in worrying about what they're going to do, we confer power on them over our life. In the past, it was this mindset of people toward the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that came true for them and caused them to fall. They thought negative thoughts regarding the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And when it became manifest that the domestic life of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad encompassed commandments from Allah that he'd take on more than one wife, many people sat back and said, see, I told you he was a dirty old man. But that was their reality. And as a result, they are now in the grave, whether they're living physically or dead. They lost all of the power that came to them in their lives through their belief. He, in the meantime, has been exalted to a position of power and is controlling the forces of nature even as I speak. So this is what I mean by self-fulfilling prophecy. It comes true for you. Your thoughts about another person eventually will become true for you. Because eventually you'll look at them and say, see, I told you they were that way. And meanwhile, Allah is blessing them to move to a higher plane. They've become a butterfly. They don't remember you, nor do you come to their mind. You stay as a caterpillar because you refuse to obey the laws of nature. The law of attraction. The law of attraction says we inevitably attract into our lives the people and circumstances that harmonize with our dominant thoughts. We look at our children sometimes and say, oh God, I don't know where they came from. Oh Jesus, what did I do to give birth to such a person? You brought into your life, through the law of attraction, the reflection of your own dominant thoughts. And if you want to attract different people and different circumstances, then you and I have to do what? Change our thinking. That doesn't mean you get rid of your family if you're not satisfied, but you can change them right in the same body that they occupy. And of course, that body will eventually change to reflect that new mind. Our thoughts are a form of electromagnetic energy that radiate out from us and attract back to us like a magnet. People and circumstances that harmonize with how we think. So black people who are afraid of Caucasian people tend to draw to themselves the most arrogant and racist type of Caucasian people there are. They have the worst experience. You look at Minister Farrakhan and you say he hates people, but yet he gets along with them better than the Negroes who are afraid of them. I've never seen him have an unpleasant conversation with a Caucasian person in the moments when he has occasion to encounter them, because he's civilized. And when you are a civilized person, your dominant aura will put a beastly person in check, as long as they're in the force of your aura. But when you're a scared to death Negro, You bring out the beast in white people. I heard you were over there with Farrakhan. So, that's all you have to say. So, and they'll run away. Try it tomorrow. But if you start explaining why you were here, I'm not satisfied with your explanation. But see, when I was walking down Stony Island and I really was trying to go to the store and no. Just say, so what? What's it to you? And they'll find something else to do. The law of concentration. Whatever you dwell upon in the conscious mind grows in your experience. Thoughts are watered and fertilized by what? Our attention. It's just like cultivating plants. If you want a plant to grow, you give it attention, you give it water, you give it food, and it will grow. It will be beautiful. If you don't pay any attention to it, something is going to grow in that soil anyway, namely weeds. So you must cultivate your thinking. Focus on the positive things that you want out of life and give attention to those things until it comes into your reality. You have to make a picture of it in the mind. The law of substitution says that the conscious mind can only hold one thought at a time, positive or negative. And if you want positive experiences in your life, you must keep your conscious mind focused on positive things. Keep it on positive events. Keep it on positive circumstances. I read a saying recently, and it went something like this. Great minds focus on ideas and talk about ideas. That's what it said. Great minds talk about ideas. Intellectual minds talk about events. Small minds talk about other people. Now, the mind is fertile. And when I read that, I had to process, and I said, that is so true. Because when I'm thinking about ideas, it's coming in the higher level of myself. When I'm thinking about events, it's on the medium intellectual level. But when I'm engaged in a conversation about the negative attributes of another person, this is when I'm at my lowest and produce the least. And that's why when you go into any group of people or any organization and you see people over in a corner whispering about other people, you can go away for 10 years and come back, and that same group of people will still be in the corner whispering when others have graduated and moved on to better things in life. The mind is fertile. If it is not cultivated, as I indicated, something's going to grow there anyway, a wild thing. And this is why the youth today are viewed by their parents as wild. They were not given any attention or cultivated from childhood on. Most of the mothers today, because of being forced by this economic system out to work, were not there to nurture the child. So something else grew in the place of the thoughts that we would normally put into that child. And that something else is a wild thing. But at the same time, this is part of a larger plan of Allah, which I will speak of in a second. But remember that the weeds, which in the thought realm would be something like worry, fear, anxiety, these are weeds. This is wild thinking. The minister said we undergo a lot of stress every day by the thoughts that our mind is burdened with, much of which we make up ourselves. When you start processing, and I start processing through the thoughts we have any given day, at least 50% of them come from fantasies in our own mind. And we burden ourselves with our own fantasies. So remember, beloved, that the mind is a vacuum, and it will not remain empty for a long period of time. And if you don't fill it with something, someone else will come and put what they want into that mind. And in fact, that's how the Caucasian people were produced in the first place. It was in a vacuum in the history of the black man. Now, there are two important factors from Study Guide 18 that I wanted to review with you: thinking and emotion. And, of course, the title of the study guide that Minister Farrakhan gave us is Rising Above Emotion into the Thinking of God. Feeling is the activating process of mind. Each thought that you want to bring into reality must be charged or activated by an emotion, up to and including the mother of emotion, which is love. A thought without a feeling does not generate any reaction in your life, nor does a feeling without a thought. So we have to be balanced. That's the point. He tells us, rise above emotion. He doesn't say go beyond emotion. In other words, stay over it, but control it. Don't seek to have a cold and feelingless life and say to yourself, I know I'm going to get control. I'm just not going to care anymore. That is not natural. Allah, God, Jehovah, whatever you call his name by, the Creator has feeling. That's what actuated everything you see around you, including you and I. We are here because he had a desire for us, but he did not allow his emotions to direct his thinking. It's the other way around. Thought and emotion must exist in harmony, and that can only be when thinking is that of God. And he says in this book, the Holy Quran, I am above need of my creation. So you can't let food, sex, drugs, a job, money, and the low desire for those things guide your thinking. The thinking has to guide the passion and not the other way around. Now, the law of repetition says that when you want to acquire a mechanical skill such as driving a car, typing, playing baseball, you have to learn that skill how? By practicing that skill over and over again until it is incorporated into your behavior and then becomes automatic. Every single attitude or value that you and I have is a habit pattern of thought, positive or negative. Why are black people so enamored with Christmas? Why? To the point that great offense is taken, even at the slightest raising of a question as to whether or not this is the healthiest thing to do. We get offended. And I'm speaking now of us collectively. Why is that? If we search our history, and this is why it is important that we study history, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it rewards research. It gives you the motives that men's actions spring from. Why do we do what we do? That should be a constant question that you ask yourself each day if you are serious about self-control. Why do I do what I do? If you study our history as slaves, for 310 years, we were in physical bondage in this country. We were in that condition longer than we've been away from it. So how can we dismiss it and exclude it as a factor in contemplating why we're shooting each other and killing each other and why we love Christmas so much? But in slavery, December 25th was the one and only day where there was some relief from the labor that the white men put on us. White people partied on that day, and they would get drunk, and they would feel a certain, what they call spirit. But we're not talking about a Holy Spirit. We're talking about a 200 proof spirit that made them say, let the niggas sit down for a couple hours. And we're going to eat some of this turkey over here. All you niggas, get all the niggas up in here. And they would line up the slaves. And this nasty redneck peckerwood who slept in his clothes the night before. You didn't know they did that, did you? Oh, they do that. But he slept in his clothes the night before. He goes in his nasty, funky pocket and pulls out of it with lint stuck to it some lemon drop candy. And he gives each slave one and says, go on and suck it, boy. And we would be so joyful. They would go on and visit other plantations and be gone all day. Because in those days, it took you all day to go down the street. So they would be gone all day. We would be so overjoyed at their absence. We didn't get gifts. We just got a minute where we didn't have to see them. And this was such a time of joy that by the time they returned, we were singing, dancing, partying, shouting, and they would say, man, them niggas sure is happy. And to this day, we live for this time of year because it's in our genes. It's genetic now. Environment, Minister Farrakhan tells us, affects heredity. When you practice a certain behavior enough generations, it gets in the blood. We had reached a point until this generation that is coming up now, they're the first generation that is completely fearless. And they were broken from that fear by the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, not Malcolm X, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Because he put something in us for 44 years, and now the Honorable Louis Farrakhan appeals to what is in us. And that is what is making us stand up and start to throw off these chains. The law of repetition. You don't dwell on what you are. Dwell on what you desire to be. That is why the back of the final call has the Muslim program, what the Muslims want, what the Muslims believe. You should read that every day. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad put that there not out of some desire to convince somebody to give us that, but in response to constant questions to him, what do the Muslims want? That's a game white people play. What do you want, Jesse? He said he wanted to be the president. Read my lips. I want to be the president. You illiterate? That's what he should have said. But he tried to explain himself, but that's a mind game. Why do you keep asking me what do I want when what I want is plain? We want freedom, a full and complete freedom. So when he gave them an answer to their question, they ran away in fear because they thought he would back down. They thought he would say, we just want some jobs. But he told them, we want race mixing prohibited. We want a law that prohibits you from mixing with white people. We don't want to leave it up to you anymore. You can't say it's a preference when you have a duty to your own people to restore the purity of that which you lost in bondage. The law of relaxation. That's the last law I'm going to do today. The law of relaxation. Good, yes. I'm not talking about what's forming in our mind. I know how I relax. In all mental workings, effort defeats itself. See, in the physical world, it's just the opposite. In the physical realm, the more you exert yourself, the more results you get, and the quicker you get them, and the better you get them. But in the mental world, this is something I'm trying to learn. I cannot get this. I can talk about it, but I just can't seem to get it and do it. But in the mental world, the more we do not force a thing, the sooner a result is produced. If we would just relax and confidently believe and expect that the thing we want will come into our lives by the grace of God when we're ready for it, then the more rapidly it will come. Because part of our readiness for what we want is submission to God's will. If we try to make things happen out of their due time, invariably we precipitate a crisis in our lives. And seeking to produce non-realities is the main source of the unhappiness of black people in America. We try to make non-realities. And we were talking about this in our Friday night study session in our ministry class, and Minister Abdullah had brought us so much of substance to that meeting. But we were discussing pursuit of non-reality. And he was telling us that one thing we must harmonize ourselves with is the idea of where we fit in God's agenda, and realize that we occupy a certain space in time, and get to work on doing what we were born to do, and not trying to jump out into the future and bring about something that it's not time for, and of course not holding on to the past, trying to keep things where they used to be. And we realized as we discussed that concept, and both Minister Abdullah and myself teach this to our children in Islamic studies. We explain to them as children that they should, I tell the females, you should be preparing yourself now as a little girl to be the mother of a servant of God, and plan to produce a life that is a degree higher than yourself. And of course, it follows from that, if a young black female is given the truth of the great individual that she is, that she is a co-creator with God, that she's the product of God's study of himself and his instrument of reproduction of himself. Then when she's 13, you don't have to follow her around monitoring her activities. Who was you with? Because if she has value in herself, she will know what to do, when to do it, where to do it, and who to do it with. And all praise is due to Allah for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. And the same thing with the black man. All you have to tell him is who he is, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, the God of the universe. God doesn't sell cocaine. God doesn't have to force himself in a situation. God commands obedience to his will by the force of his power. His attraction makes everything in creation submit to him. So we tell our children who they are, then they know what to do. Dr. Spock can't tell you how to raise a melanin child. So we need to stop seeking to produce non-reality. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan said, this is one of my favorite statements he's ever made. He's made a lot of them that are so profound, if we would listen, it would knock our socks off. This is the truth. Sometimes the stuff is so heavy, we just skate over it. And it's going to take history to really tell how powerful he is. And are you ready for this? How powerful you and I are. But he said, and I quote, as long as we live with white people, and he said, we will live under them. Now, simple math is taking the known and figuring the unknown. Now, if you accept and know that to be a fact, it follows from that we're going to have to do what? Separate. So to pursue equality living with them is to pursue a non-reality, which means an unhappy existence. Now, we've got to start looking quickly at process over outcome. We focus too much on what we want to do without thinking of the effects on our own mind of how we go about doing it. What man wants fame and money so much he's willing to become a woman? You understand what I'm saying? And there's nothing wrong with being a woman, but there is if you were born a man. So outcome is money and fame. But what process are you employing to get there? See, the white man comes to you and offers you a means to get to what he knows is your desirable end. And that's where the trial comes. We earn our living in a manner that is consistent with our self-concept. If we earn our living as a drug dealer, it is because of a very low and distorted self-concept. You can't possibly think well of yourself, and you're selling drugs. It's a shame. Fortunately for us, every human or black being, because I found out from the Melanin scientists that human means black. Hue means color. So we're the only human beings there are. So every black being or human being is in a constant state of becoming. That is, no one stays the same forever. Thank God. We are continually evolving and growing as human beings, and we're becoming more, better, and different. Now remember, we always change in the direction of our ideal self. So forget about the condition we're in and image up in your mind where you want to be, what you want to be, what you want to look like, all of it. And then your mind will move in that direction, and your mind will take your body with it. Now, I want to say this as I come to a close about the substance of melanin. You know, we think about white people too much. This goes back to the statement I made in the beginning, that every time we approach infinity, meaning direct contact with the Creator, which will really lift us up above racism. See, these teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they're not a racist doctrine. They're rooted in universal divine law. Then you say, well, why do you talk about these white people so much? Because there's got to be an effort to erase the thought about them in the manner that we think about them. Our thoughts are so consumed with pleasing them that it's impossible to teach us unless we address ourselves to that. That's why we have to do that. But we think about them so much. In fact, it was our thought about them that brought them into existence in the first place. We produced them by thinking them into being, and we are sustaining them by continually worrying about what they will think about what we do when we're alone. As though there's always a black person in the meetings in the White House. See, George Bush has his public cabinet, but then he has his private advisors. And people like Henry Kissinger, a German, who you thought was long gone, is still one of the major advisors. Do you think George Bush cares about whether you know that or whether that offends you? Of course not. Now, melanin research is enlightening and it's inspiring, but it is still comparison study. And I'm bringing it up in the same context that other ministers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad are now dealing with Malcolm X. It's not that we're trying to attack somebody or unduly criticize a study or a person, but from the root teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we can see that that type of concentration is going to take us nowhere. Knowing that melanin gives you dark color and gives you physical superiority is not going to free you unless you understand that in the proper context. And if you're not careful, the white man will make you happy just knowing that. That's the point. And thinking you don't have to do anything about yourself. Now, we say we want to get sanctified. But sanctified or holy means to set apart. It means separation. Now, in a recent discussion on sunlight in the final call, Minister Farrakhan pointed out that there are many vitamins that are in the sun that are only available from the sun. No matter how good your diet is, and Minister Abdullah Muhammad pointed this out Friday night, that if you stay indoors, away from light, for any extended period of time, no matter how good your diet is, you will become ill. Now, what does that tell us? Are we where we originated from? Are we? I'm going to ask you a question I heard a brother ask in LA. How many people in this audience speak a foreign language? How many people speak a foreign language? That's right. Everybody. We all speak English, don't we? Ha. I heard one of my very powerful brothers out in Los Angeles on a video ask that question. The point being that English is a grafted language. We speak a grafted foreign tongue. We live in a foreign place. We are under the rule of a foreign people. Not only are the people grafted, but the language they speak is grafted. And this can be proven in no limit of time by looking in the dictionary. Every English word that you see has a root in another language. Now go look in an Arabic dictionary. You're not going to see that the word Muslim came from a French word meaning, or an English word meaning. That is the word. All right? When the believer says Assalamu alaikum to you, sometimes we get offended. What's that nigga talking? You hear that nigga talking about this salam alaikum? Nigga's crazy. Why don't you speak English like normal people? That's what the world be speaking. And yet you deny that they control everything. But we must receive sunlight. We are not getting it physically as a reflection of the fact that we're away from our God. Once we went away from our Creator spiritually, it was only a matter of time before we could be taken away from our homeland. We are from the land of the sun. We belong in sunshine. Everybody in this room should be at least a shade darker than we are, if we lived where we should live. But my point is this: you need sunlight, and you need it directly to have good health. The same is true of the Word of God. You must receive it directly yourself. You can't just get it through some preacher's interpretation of it. You can't take anyone's interpretation alone. Whatever I say today, you have a duty to go and research and read to see if what I'm saying is true. You can't accept what I'm saying if you like my voice, or reject what I'm saying if you don't like my voice. You have to pursue knowledge and get it yourself. But melanin, as we were discussing Friday night, is a high energy molecule. And that's bringing me down to the end of where I wanted to go today. You are possessed of high energy molecules, speed molecules. Now, the English language, as I said, is grafted. Therefore, it is too slow. It is inadequate to meet the needs of the black man, who thinks much too fast for this language to accommodate his thought. So he contracts it. Recently at a Luther Vandross concert, Sinbad, you know Sinbad, don't you? You know who Sinbad is, right? I know. What they gonna say if we say yeah? Must have said, I don't want the video camera to be on me saying yeah for all of history. But Sinbad was at the concert making a few remarks, as they say, cracking on. Some of the people were sitting in some undesirable seats where the view wasn't that good. So he launched into an analysis of how we do everything at the last minute. Because he was telling the people in the bad seats, he said, I know you just got your ticket today. The thing's been promoted for a month, and you just decided today that you were going to come and thought you were going to get in the front row. He said, the way black people do at the last minute, we look at each other and say, you going to go? See, we don't have time to say, are you going? to go. We say, what's happening? Our thought is traveling so fast that if we say, what is happening? By the time it comes out, we forgot why we asked the question because our thought has traveled 24 billion miles to other realms of the universe. So it's not that we're ignorant, but we had to contract this retarded language so that it could at least somewhat accommodate our speed molecular thinking. Now you see the ultimate in that today in the young brothers and sisters who are called rappers. They have mastered the tongue of the slave master, and they now speak it as fast as it can possibly be spoken. If you speak it any faster than they speak it, it will lapse back into the garbling barks and growls of the caves that it came from. The rappers that we reject are pushing white people where they belong, into oblivion. And all praise is due to Allah. And once you master a thing, you have to move on. The rapper's mastery of the English language means that in a few years, we will have to completely discard English. Then we will return to our original tongue, which is Arabic, the language of the air. Because we are people of the air. We're spiritual people. So we are now on the threshold of the New World Order. Now I mentioned the sun because living in North America, which Master Farrakhan Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever, said that all of the atoms over North America are dead. So we're living under dead space. And it is what our Christian brothers and sisters call a miracle that we are even able to do what we do. But we are weakened by our distance from God and our distance from our original land. We require different living space than we have. One reason our family units cannot stay together is that we are too cramped. We need more space. Everyone should have their own bedroom with a door that closes. I guarantee you, when Caucasian people can't live with space between themselves, they go to war with one another. See, they show you themselves when they are living on a certain standard, and then they get peaceful because father has a library or a den that he can go in and close the door when the stress gets too high. Mother has a room where she can go. The children have their room. There's an exercise room. There's a pool. There's tennis courts. There are parks and gardens. I'm talking about private estates. Why should we aspire to have a 2-bedroom apartment in life? I want me a car and apartment. Their cars have more space than our homes have for us. And they call us ignorant because they have us stacked on top of each other similar to the way they did on the slave ships. But it's time for us to flex. And moving from 79th Street to this mosque is an example given to us through the mercy of Allah by Minister Farrakhan. With him in our midst, we're getting a living example of an independent black man. So how much more reality are we demanding before we get up and behave accordingly? Now, the melanin molecule absorbs energy, maximizes its use, and it's laid throughout the skin for absorption of sunlight. And there are 12 nerve pathways in the brain where melanin is saturated. And of course, Minister Farrakhan has said there can be as many as 12 different selves occupying our single organism. What we sometimes refer to as moods are actually other sides of ourself, other selves within ourself that are coming forth that we're not controlling. And of course, 12 is the number of rulership. In the Quran, you see Allah speaking to the angels. I, singular, am going to place a ruler in the earth. They get uptight, little nervous, but in questioning him, they still respect him. They say, well, are you going to create that which would shed blood, make mischief in the land? But we celebrate thy praise, extol thy holiness. In other words, we're not questioning you, God, as God, but we are a little bit concerned about your plans. So he says to them, I know what you know not. Well, this is the I, or the God of self, taking control over all the other forces. All of the other aspects of ourself exist to enable us to engineer our way through life. But we can't give in to those lesser selves and let them be the controlling force. It is the God within that we must connect with the Supreme Being through prayer. And that is how we obtain peace and control with self. Then we can impose it on the environment. Because of melanin, which also has 3 areas in the eye. So when light enters the eye, it has to pass through a black layer before it reaches the pineal gland, which is the gland in the brain that connects us with the universal power. And that means this is a witness bearing to the Holy Quran and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that Allah created himself in triple darkness. The darkness actually preceded the light, but there was light contained in the darkness. But the point is, you've always got to come through darkness to get to light. So when obstacles and difficulties present themselves in life, they should be viewed and run to with enthusiasm. I was getting ready to say happiness, but that's a little crazy, because you shouldn't be happy because you have a problem. But you should feel blessed that God thinks enough of you to give you a problem. See, when he turns his back on you and doesn't care what you do, that's when you should get concerned. And the wild people that you know, that you're aware of, and you say, well, this Negro's out here selling cocaine, doing this and that and getting away. Don't you fool yourself for a minute. That person is headed to hell in a rocket ship. Don't ever envy somebody that's getting away committing crime, because they will get theirs. As they used to say in the movies, he's going to get his. But I want to say this about melanin. By the way, all of this comes from a booklet that I've been reading from a melanin conference where people like Dr. Richard King, Dr. Carol Barnes, and others gathered to discuss this. This is not my personal research. This is the work of our own people, who are now, you can see through the events and circumstances, our people are rising up away from dependence on the Caucasian for their information. But you can send information from your head to your toe chemically, but you don't have to. You can send it in the form of electromagnetic waves, and that's much quicker. The Bible says the eye is the light of the body. You can always see a person in the eye, no matter what else a person does to disguise how they feel about a situation. They might do it in their expression or in the movement of the body. You may not see signs of distress, but you can look in the eyes. And that is why advanced medicine only requires a true physician can sit in your presence and look at you and tell you what's wrong. Only the Caucasian invented the idea of people stripping their clothes off to be examined. My husband, Brother Darius, injured his leg on the job, and the Caucasian wanted to examine his knee. Now, listen to me carefully. His knee was injured. Only part of the body injured. The white male, and this is at the place of employment, white male says to him, take off all your clothes. So my husband said, what's wrong with you? Are you a faggot or something? And the devil got so scattered in his mind, he started calling other devils in. They all huddled in the corner. I'm not going to tell them to take all of that. But see, white people invented that. These gynecologist sisters that need to do what they do. See, that's an inferior and perverted practice of medicine. And by the way, medicine has replaced religion as the God over us, sisters. See, we may not be fooled anymore by religious doctrine as to how we should function as a woman, but we're letting these gynecologists run our lives, and that's the wrong way to go. But there's a better form of communication for us, and that is the electromagnetic waves or the righteousness and the aura that we project. We can heal one another. We can create and destroy at the same time because of who and what we are. Now, you know everybody in here is a killer. Did you know that? Did you know you're a killer? Some people are like, never. No, everything living has the capacity to kill, if necessary, in order to preserve its life. This is a law of nature. This is universal law. Now, one of my personal favorite methods of killing, because I've been thinking now more and more on the removal of our oppressor. And I think one reason we're killing each other is because they got us caged in this little finite area. And they just let us go to war killing each other as long as we don't leave from that finite area. But one of my personal favorite methods, and this goes back to the electromagnetic waves if you don't believe it, is the way Dorothy killed the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz. She threw water on her. Water is symbolic of the word. And when she threw water on the witch melted away. And remember, the whole experience was something she dreamed in her sleep. And that is what the Caucasian people are to us. Actually, we're just having a 400-year bad dream. And that's why the Honorable Louis Farrakhan says, wake up. Because as soon as we wake up, everything in the dream will dissipate. But I like the way Dorothy killed that old witch. I even have a pair of red shoes. But I have been practicing this. You know, I don't talk to white people anymore in the same way I used to. If you've ever noticed in doing business with them, when you approach them, they look at you and they don't say anything. They wait for you to speak first, which is and notice this when you go to work tomorrow. Now, I don't want you to go there crazy. Like the last gunfight at the OK Corral. I'm going to throw your word first. I'm the fastest word in the West. But seriously, if you check them out, approach them in a place of business. Since we spend all our money on them, and they take our money. But when you approach them, they stand and look at you almost as though you are out of order. And if you're not careful, you will find yourself explaining your presence even before you arrive at the point of destination. Hi, I just wanted to spend my money. Oh, well, okay, then they will smile and show you some assistance. But the other day, I was in a department store making a purchase, and there was a very arrogant Caucasian at the counter. Now, how do you know she was arrogant? See, that's prejudice. Because I could read her aura. I saw her see me and turn her back. And she went around the other side of the counter to pretend she didn't see me. We all know this is true because you've experienced this. And they've trained their nigger imps to do the same thing. That's how you know a nigger imp, when they have the same reactions of the slave master. But I said to myself, okay, because I knew I was there to spend money. I'm not in there to just look around, especially this time of year when all the crazy people are out. I didn't want to be there. But I knew that I was giving her a job and not the other way around. So I sent a little electromagnetic wave around the corner and pulled her little nasty self back around to face me. Because I said to myself, opposites attract. But from now until the day you cease to exist, you will come when I call you, and not the other way around. I was furious. But I know from being a student of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan that when you get furious like that, you got power. You're so filled with fire that you just don't say anything because you don't want to start letting go. See, let it build up in you. And don't send words, send thoughts. Because they would like to provoke you into taking a posture that will lead to you being carried out. See, I was so angry. If I had spoken a word, I would have ended up in a fight with this woman or this womankind, and I would have been dragged out of there and been arrested. That's how angry I was. But instead, I sent the thought out, and my thought said, you mucus-filled ball of wax, I'm going to melt you down like the Wicked Witch. And when I thought that and sent the thought to her, she started coming apart. And I said to myself, before I leave this counter, you're going to be dead. And a few days after this, you'll finally lay down. And I was in the midst of this killing when a Negro imp ran over from somewhere else and got in between me and this woman and saved her life. And I'm saying to myself, you little black melanin dot coming in here, blocking my shot. I had a straight aim into this woman's brain. And I was going to take her right out there in the store. This is the truth. And I said, once again, saved by the nigger. Here come the nigger. Here come the nigger. Everything all right? Everything all right? I said, yes, it's all right. Go away. So she ran away, but it was too late. I had lost my aim. And I said, well, I'll be back. Put my gun away. Put my electrons back. I'll be back. So I didn't kill her, but I made her very sick. She won't be right this Christmas. But the black scientists know that the eye is the light of the body. My point is this. I had to force her to look me eye to eye. See, that's the key. Because the energy that programs information through the thalamus right into the pineal gland is what records the long-time memory of yourself. And when she looked into my eyes, she saw who I truly was. They teach us to bow our head and to look down, to protect themselves from the destructive effects upon them of looking in our eyes into their origins. So if you want to deal with them, you don't have to cuss at them. Just say, don't let them pull you out of yourself. Just look them eye to eye. And give them, first think the instructions. Don't even say anything. Give yourself a little time. Who are they that you have to rush and do all the talking? See, when my husband and I go out and deal with them, they stand there and look at us, and we stand there and look at them. And I don't need to tell you who breaks first. Because our attitude is, if this is it, we'll go down right here. We're ready anytime. Anything that will give impetus to get us up out of this rut that we're in. We were ready. We have to fight in an airport. We're ready to go down in the airport. They'd say, well, we always get threatened with this. We're going to call the police. My husband says, call them. Then they look at each other. He said, call them. That's not in the script. Now what am I supposed to do, boss? Then they go in a room somewhere and confer. And 5 minutes later, he'll say, where are the police? I want the police. You have to change, as Sister Ava Muhammad said. Stop letting things happen to you and start making things happen for you. These wicked devils, I'm closing now for real this time. But I just have to say this real quick. You know, sister, this devil will tell us you have a fibroid in your uterus. And it's the cause of your cramps and your bleeding. And we're going to relieve you of this discomfort. And they'll do that. And they also relieve you of your ability to bring the men and women into the world who are destined to bring about our liberation. In the Melanin book I read, it said a tumor, that word tumor, actually means too much. That's all it is. It means there's too much of something, namely food, in the system. And if we would return to the proper way of living and how to eat to live by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, then we would not even find ourselves presenting ourselves to physicians to receive these types of diagnoses. And in the end, it's true. He will give you a pain-free existence. Same thing with you, brother, with prostate. He'll tell you, I'll relieve you of your suffering. He will also relieve you of your reproductive ability. So we must now go back to the natural way of life. I want to close with Surah 9, verse 128. Certainly, a messenger has come to you from among yourselves. Grievous to him is your falling into distress, most solicitous for you. To the believers he is compassionate, merciful. This verse is describing the heart of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. It is a heart which grieves for all of humanity, and he is solicitous for the welfare of all. But with the believer, he has a special relationship. He is compassionate and merciful. And please, while we live and have the opportunity to do so, let us take from him the direct sunlight that will restore us to our health and to our happiness. And may Allah bless all of us with the light of understanding. Thank you for your patience as I leave you in the words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.